Good evening, one and all, and welcome. I am proud to welcome you to another virtual CPE meeting on the topic technology as an enabler for internal audit. Technology plays a very important role in the modern life, and it can act as an enabler or a disruptor. And I am proud to welcome you to shed some more light on the topic. CA Upkar Singh. He is a chairman of Chandigarh branch of NIRC of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Thank you, sir. Please go.
Thank you, Karanveer. Respected members, a very good evening to all of you. ICAI Upkar Singh, Chairman, Chandigarh branch, on behalf of Internal Audit Standard Board of ICAI and Chandigarh branch of ICAI, welcomes you on today's virtual CP meeting on technology as enabler of internal audit. I also welcome CA Prashant Daftari on the topic embracing technology and meeting stakeholder expectations, and CA S Deepika on the topic key aspects of digital forensics, and CA Purv Galaji on the topic identifying red flags and report writing by internal auditors. I am thankful to Chairman and Vice Chairman of Internal Audit Standard Board for giving me this opportunity to host this program. Internal Audit Standard Board is working relentlessly to organize programs in the form of seminars, conferences, webinars, CP meeting and workshops, and standards on internal audit and technical guides, which constitute an important tool in helping the internal auditors to provide effective and efficient internal audit services. I am happy to inform that during the last year, the Internal Audit Standard Board embarked upon a very informative series on the empowering small and medium practitioners. This year, the board continued the trend by sharing a series on technology as enabler on internal audit, on internal audit process, and more than 100 programs has been conducted by the board on this series. I wish the board continuing holding such programs for the benefit of the members. These programs help the member go a long way in shaping their career. I wish the board all success in these initiatives of knowledge sharing and empowering all and small and medium practitioners. At the end, I thank you all for attending this virtual CP meeting in a big number. Stay home, stay safe, stay connected. Thank you all. Jai Hind, Jai ICAI. Over to Karanveer ji.
Thank you, sir, for such beautiful remarks. And we are proud to be members of ICI. And moving on to the first session, I welcome CA Prashant Daftare, sir. He is a qualified chartered accountant, and he started his journey at the same firm where he is a partner now at NSA, at NA Shah Associates, and he has over 17 years of experience in specializing in stat audit, risk-based internal audit, process reviews, due diligence reviews, IFRS, and Ind AS. Further, he has also been very active in the ICI circles and has given various presentations on Ind AS, audit under Companies Act, internal audit, and due diligence. Further, he has also contributed to various articles in various respected publications like Economic Times CFO, CTC Journal, and other various platforms. Please, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I will just share my screen and then we can start. Is it okay?
Yeah, it is visible now.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good evening to all the participants, all the members of the committee of the branch, and I really thank you all for the opportunity on a Saturday evening. But the topic that we are discussing today is quite important. I think the theme which is selected is very, very relevant in today's world. And the topic which I am going to deal is about the technology and meeting stakeholders' expectations. And when this topic was told to me, I was quite excited because in today's world, everything is technology driven. So what we will do is we will go through the following things. We have a allotted time between 45 minutes to 55 minutes, which is there. So what we will try to do is to say how the internal audit profession has moved from where we started, maybe from a vouching verification oriented to the today's world. What is the expectations of the stakeholders? What are the new technologies that are getting used by the internal auditors, by the companies, which we should be aware about, because that will really shape our role as the auditors. What are the skills that we require? What skill development that we need to do to stay relevant in today's world? That is going to be very, very important. And we will also look at a section on the SMEs. How, there is a myth that all the technology is very useful to the very, very big companies. Maybe the large companies can afford technology or they can use, but there are a lot of opportunities for SMEs where technologies can be used. Even small and medium-sized firms can really use technology to their advantage and save a lot of time and cost. And we will try to look at some of those practical examples. And I believe we will have a Q&A at the end of the session, or whenever it is feasible. In case there are questions, I think chat box is the best option where people can pose the questions. So in today's world, this is what we are seeing in reality. We are seeing loans being disbursed by robots or artificial intelligence. I have seen cases where the loans are disbursed in a fintech company, where loans are disbursed within 10 minutes of your application. The entire processing is done by an artificial intelligence or a robot. They have the set parameters. They decide the score. They look at CIBIL. They extract the data from CIBIL. They look at the bank statement. They do the trend. They look at the social media. They look at LinkedIn. They look at Facebook. They look at all your profiles, and they do a score. And based on that, the loan is disbursed. They are small ticket loans, but there are a lot of such applications which are available. A lot of insurance claims are getting processed through artificial intelligence, robots. Chatbots are being used. We have seen in real time. We have all used that via maybe for Uber, for Amazon, or various other things. We have used chatbots. Complete transactions are being done through mobile apps. Very recently, I was amazed to see a video about the entire physical verification of a very large premises being conducted by a drone. So what it used to do is that it used to scan the barcode, map it with the SAP system, and generated the variance report. And now imagine physical verification is one of the areas where internal auditors are extensively used, or multiple, if there are plants, companies with multiple plant locations, and the internal auditors are extensively used for doing the physical verification. Now, if this activity is done by the drones, imagine the time which it can save. The travel time also sometimes can be reduced, and even the analysis, the variance analysis can come through, directly from the system. This is a challenge, a threat, as well as an opportunity. So how do we stay relevant in these times? If we use the modern old methods of doing internal audit. So if we imagine you are an auditor of the fintech company who is completely disbursing loans through systems. What value add will you give if you have to do a conventional audit? If you directly check the disbursals which are made, because everything is integrated, interest calculation happens through the tech platform. It is integrated with the accounting package. What value add will you give if you have to do a vouching verification and all those type of activities? You will never get any value addition. And at some point in time, you will become redundant. Here, the internal auditor will have to use technology. We will have to understand the technology, and we'll have to audit the technology. Unless we are able to do that, we will not be able to do any value addition. And if you are not going to give any value addition, you will ultimately become redundant. So this is the today's reality, which we need to accept. And based on that, we need to rescale our complete deliverable and way we do our business. So it was a transaction audit. At the start, maybe a few years back, when I started my articleship, it was more of a transaction audit where you used to look at the vouchers, verification. Your observations typically used to be, so many vouchers are not authorized. Here, the signatures are not there. Vouchers are not matching. Supportings are not available. that has changed to a more of a process review, that people are looking at processes. Now the demand is towards risk management, and now it is ultimately going towards automation and digitization. I was discussing maybe 2 days back with one of the CFO about an internal audit engagement. He said that we are not happy with our old internal auditors because the observations are delay in GRN, PO not converted into PR, time gap. These are very routine. The audit committee expectation is very, very different. They need something more. So that is why they are looking at a different scale type of an internal auditor who are able to provide this type of a skill set. So this is the today's reality. These are the live discussions which I am trying to share. This is what is happening today, and we need to be aware about it. As I said earlier, there is a drastic need to change the way we do our internal audit because the compliance requirements have got completely, have gone over the top. It is extremely impossible to really even understand how many laws are applicable, what is the implication of each of the laws. So unless you are able to use a technology, you have a compliance software to really control this, there is no way in which you can do in a country like India. Most of the boards expect that you have a compliance certificate which is placed on the record. Without a system and a process to really do this, how is it possible? Maybe very, very large companies have a compliance software which they are using. Maybe at the medium size, even listed company level, this is a big challenge. And there is a big opportunity that if you are able to have a solution which you can provide, maybe along with a legal firm, along with the softwares which are available, if you are aware about those, you may be able to give a lot of value addition, and you can become a bridge between the company, between the lawyers, between the technology partners, and come to a complete setup. And this could be a very good opportunity. Businesses have become very, very complex. The risks are coming from very, very different directions. Who imagined that for 2 years you would be at home and doing everything online? In that case, if the companies were not very, very digitally savvy, the impact was even much more. At least 3 to 4 months of business would have got lost if you are not really digitally savvy. The approach and the expectations are drastically changing. The environment has become very, very competitive. As a chartered accountant firm, this is a reality. The resources are scarce. I mean, everybody sitting on or attending the program will agree that the resources are very, very scarce. So with a scarce resource, increasing demand, how do you keep on meeting the expectation? There is only one answer. And you keep on reading in the newspaper about frauds. Either there is an online fraud, or there are frauds related to diversion of funds, or there are multiple other things that you keep on reading. And the expectation of all the stakeholders is that auditor has a magic wand that they can find out everything, which is not true. As I said earlier, some of the key risks which are now getting emerged is people are wanting to look at cyber security. This is also from a practical experience. I was talking to another CFO or the board members, and they said that yes, you procure to pay, all these areas are fine, but do you have expertise on cyber security? Will you be able to help us on that? It was a software company. Will you be able to help us to check whether we are compliant with immigration laws? So, for example, if a software company has multiple subsidiaries across the world, and they are sending people from India to those, whether you are compliant with immigration laws, that was the question, whether you will be able to audit that area, because that is a critical risk area. Not everybody has the skills to look at those type of areas. The regulatory risk, vendor-related risk is something which is very, very critical now, and it is increasing. One was the initial conventional areas of price discovery and other things; those are there, but where job working or the vendors become an extended arm, the issues at their end becomes your responsibility, and whether you are able to control that. So if it is, be it child labor, be it Minimum Wages Act, or all those compliances, if you are a large company, issues at the vendor's end becomes your problem, and it creates a great issue. Corporate governance is constantly getting talked about. How do you raise the bar? And this is extremely relevant even for SMEs, because today with the IPOs which are happening, a lot of small and medium companies are getting listed. Maybe it's a 500 crore turnover, 300 crore turnover, 1000 crore turnover. These are not very, very large, but they're still getting listed. And once they start getting listed, the norms, the compliances, all those things need to be ensured. And another area where is the soft skills part. either on the social media related risk. So if an employee of the company puts up a tweet where, what are the policies relating to that, where what can be spoken, what cannot be spoken, because whatever is spoken by an employee becomes a company's position sometimes, and it creates a lot of problem, and you have seen that it sometimes even impacts the share price of that company. So these are all the areas where the board, the audit committee, they are looking at the auditors to provide insights on some of this risk, what are the controls management is having, and whether they are getting followed, not followed, whether they are designed properly or not. These are the areas. And what happens is, once you are able to use technology, your routine work can be done by the technology, and you are able to give time to some of these value-added areas. That is also how technology benefits. So this is something which we spoke about earlier. Continuation from what I was speaking is, it was an oversight function. Then there is an expectation of an insight that, you tell us about our processes, whether they are doing fine, not doing fine. You provide us, help us on the MIS, help us on benchmarking of the processes. But now they also want foresight. What is the potential fraud risk? There is a lot of questions which is there. They are wanting, what are the value additions which is possible going forward? Can you anticipate certain risks? These are the problems which you will face if you move in this direction, or these are the new systems which are there which you need to adopt. So the foresight is also expected, and some of the technology can help you give that, be it artificial intelligence, be it machine learning. Some of those areas, they can help you in moving towards those direction. And ultimately, it is the human mind which has to be applied over and above the technology to give you that output and a result. So this is summarizing the key expectations which are there. One of the very, very key expectations now which is happening is that the sampling, the expectation on the sampling is now gone away. They want you to do the 100% audit. They want you to do a complete coverage. And this is now an expectation which I'm practically seeing in real life. More than one person or multiple people have requested that we want you to do a complete audit. We don't want to do a sampling. And this is a real business requirement which is there. So when you talk about that, I have done 10% of the sample as an internal auditor, or a 15% of the total sample, people are not happy. They want you to do 100% coverage. And without the use of technology, without the use of audit tools, doing a 100% coverage is extremely difficult. They want a 360-degree view also in terms of what are the other implications if this is going wrong. So this is another area where there is a real challenge, because humanly impossible to do a 100% audit. The expectation is also to do a data mining. So for example, if you are an auditor of an BFSI company which is into loans, or that is an example which I can take, where they want you to, they are asking for an insight, where the major NPAs are coming, what are the demographics, what are the patterns within that data. If you are able to analyze and point out that all your NPAs are coming from this age group, or all your NPAs are coming from these type of businesses, or 60% of the NPAs are happening from these type of sectors, then they can change their policies and processes to address those risks. So this is how you are able to add value. On the cyber and the IT controls, it is becoming more and more important that we understand the IT controls, how they are working, what is the access systems, what are the backup processes, whether the backups are getting restored, not restored. This is our understanding on the IT, which is very, very critical. For example, if backup is taken, but it is not at an offsite location, this is a common error which happens on the SME side. Or sometimes backups are taken, but they are not tested periodically. I have a backup, but I have never tested it, that whether it works or it does not work. And on a given situation, it does not work at that point in time for some other reason. Then you have a real problem. Why did you take a backup only if it is of no use? So these are the issues which are happening on the real-time basis. There are cases where ransom attacks are happening, and ransom is being demanded to release the data. And at that point in time, the questions are asked, whether our systems were strong enough, not strong enough, whether there was an antivirus which was good, whether the firewalls were strong, not strong, what were our IT guidelines. I have seen companies, what they are now also doing is there are phishing emails which are internally generated and sent. This may be a false alarm, is like a mock phishing mail which are sent, and the people who click on those, they are given, a proper training or a communication goes to that these are the sort of emails that you should not click, and that these are the trends or the patterns of the people who are more susceptible to doing such type of errors. So that is another practice. So if we are aware about some of these practices, we can make suggestions to our clients that these are some of the things that you should be able to do. And as an internal auditor, if you are able to make 2 or 3 such suggestions in every audit, that really brings about a very good value addition. And ultimately, once there is a value addition, automatically it translates into trust, relationship, and ultimately the fees part of it. How do we use the modern technology, and what are the examples of the modern technology? This is the next set of slides which I have on the application of the modern technology in internal audit. Obviously, in any audit, you have a planning, you have execution, and you're reporting. How do you use technology in planning? Say you have a client which has 40 branches across India. Which branch do you need to audit first? You cannot do 40 in a year, right? Which one do you select? So there are patterns. What you can do is you can have a common parameter. So parameters could be sales, collections, employee turnover ratio, your turnaround time, their responses, profitability. If you have 7, 8 such parameters, and if you have set such parameters, and with the help of the technology or the tools, sometimes even Excel is a good tool. If you are able to use those and map it, and then that there are 5 or 6 branches which are consistently failing in all the parameters, then you may want to do audit of some of those branches, and maybe you want to do audit of one very good branch, and select the 2 extremes to see what is happening at both the levels. Maybe whether it is the person who is too good to be true. Sometimes that is also a problem. That is also a red flag that it is too good to be true. And sometimes where the problems are obvious, that yes, there is something wrong in this. So let us go to do that. So that is how you do the risk profiling. This is one very easy example that I selected on the type of branches. This can be applied to other areas also, where the areas which you want to select. So whether you want to do procurement first, whether you want to do property, plant, equipment, whether you want to do the debtors, whether you want to do inventory management, whether you want to do job working, which areas would you want to select? Where are the risks which are critical? So those are the examples where the technology can be put to use, and they can lead you to the right direction if used well. Sampling is another area where technology can be very, very used very, very intelligently. So for example, if you have a complete dump of the sales, and you do a daily sales analysis, location-wise sales analysis, product-wise sales analysis, and if you have those reports which are there in front of you, and then you observe that last 5 days the sales is tremendously high, then you would obviously want your sampling to concentrate on those areas. That is there a cutoff issue, is there a revenue recognition issue, or you see a pattern which is unusual, you see too many high value sales, and then no sales for a particular period, or all the sales are clubbed together. Those are the areas where if you are able to identify a correct sample and do a focused audit, your output will be much better. And you will also be able to justify that your audit process was scientific, even if there is some things happens, and then you are questioned that you did not get picked up in your audit, but you can still be able to prove that I did a scientific audit. It was not that I felt good that I selected these 20 samples. I used some logic. It was system driven. It was not biased, and hence the sampling which is there, it was an unbiased sampling, and I followed the standards on sampling, and this is the output of that. And what happens is that they document it very clearly. When you are using a technology, it gets documented very, very clearly. It helps us a very good audit trail also. And as an auditor, what processes did you follow? Sometimes it is as good as an insurance to you, that if you are questioned on a future date, this is very, very helpful. Another area, during the audit execution, what happens is you can use some of the parameters, like if a PO is created at 12 o'clock in the night. Now, 12 o'clock in the night, the factory or the company is closed down. That is generally the timelines, unless there is a specific, somebody has taken an approval or something of that sort. So if those BOs or those are something which is susceptible, you have to look at those very carefully. Why would somebody create a PO at 12 o'clock in the night? Why would some payment be made at such an odd hour? So those are the type of filters or the parameters that you set in the system, and that leads you to a better result. You can set parameters for duplicate payments, same invoice numbers, same type of services, same vendor, same amount, similar dates. So if you set such parameters, it really helps you to block some of those fraud related items. This can be an indicator. It may not necessarily be true, but this becomes an indicator. And these are some of the examples which can be used even at a smaller company level also. I have a separate section on the small companies, but this can all be used on a small company level. I am not talking about very, very hi-fi companies or very, very large companies. It can be used even in a small and a medium-sized company if you are able to do some of these things. Another area where technology can be put to use and the output can be very, very quick is splitting of checks, splitting of purchase order to breach the authority. Either it could be done because the signatories were not there, or you do not want to go to an higher authority to get your approvals. But technology can be used. If you are using the sort functions or the filter functions in Excel, even those gives you a very good result. If you have a very large database, Excel is not then useful, then you may have to go towards certain audit tools where it is a predefined function. So these are some of the areas. Reporting is one area where technology can be very, very useful. Today, people do not like to read a very, very long report. If you make a 100-page report, most likely it will never be read. And people also want a live reporting. That is also one of the expectations of the stakeholders, that even if you observe something which is critical, please do inform us at the earliest, like a flash report. So for example, if you have identified that a certain amount of stock is not covered in insurance, would you wait till the end of the month, by the time you complete your report, review and discussion and issue to the client, and then he realizes that for 30 days his stock was not insured, where you knew at the first day itself? In fact, something happens within those 30 days, you will also be questioned that why you did not even inform us. So some of those cases where if you are using a technology, some of these live reports can be generated and immediately sent out. Real-time exception reports can be generated. As I said, if you set a parameter, any PO raise after 12, I need SMS goes to the senior management, SMS goes to the CFO, SMS goes to the MD. Then they know that this is, if that is with their knowledge, fine. But if it is not with their knowledge, they can investigate that or check about all that area in further detail. So lot of small things can be done. For example, another area where technology can be put to very good use is that the matching of the POs, GRNs, if that can be automated, a lot of time can be saved and it becomes a system-driven exercise. If you are doing periodic audits, quarterly audits, where same areas are getting checked repetitively, macros can be created and the data can be dumped in that macro and you get your result immediately. Today, there is a lot of pressure on fees and time. So if you're able to use technology, reduce your audit time and give the same output, you may be able to continue doing that work more profitably. Because if you're going to do the same work again and again on a human calculation basis, it will take a very long time. Some of the modern technologies where most of the companies, especially the larger ones, medium to large ones, have started adopting. People have started using artificial intelligence. As I said, fintech companies, even these are not very large, they are using artificial intelligence to a very, very large extent. Retail companies, they are using it to a very, very large extent in terms of understanding what should be my procurement planning, what should be my stocking pattern, where should I store an inventory, where should I stack, how much should I stack, all those things, what should be my packing size. It is extensively used there. Process mining is another interesting thing. RPA, robotic process automation. This is another area which a lot of companies have started using. They have started using robots to do certain repetitive functions. It could be preparation of bank reconciliations, it could be payment function, it could be matching of the invoice and the payments which are received, knocking off, it could be standard MIS preparations, robots are used, it could be payroll, it could be scheduling of interviews. There are multiple platforms and robots are used for that. And advanced analytics is another area which is getting used tremendously. Artificial intelligence, as I said earlier, people are using it to understand what is going to be my behavioral pattern of the customers. How do I stock? How do I procure? These are getting extensively used. Even we as individuals are starting to use that. For example, if you use some of the applications of they predict that what is your likes, what is your dislikes based on your past patterns. So, for example, some of the music apps, based on the music that you are listening, they are able to predict that you will like certain type of music or you will not like certain type of music. Right? This is all we have used. Google is also getting more and more intelligent. Similarly, even in the business areas as an auditor, you will have to look at where your client can use some of those technologies and you can be a bridge. That these are the areas where you can use, or we can help them use those technologies. Process mining is a combination where you use machine learning and you use artificial intelligence. It gives you a complete breakdown of how the activity has moved within the system. So, for example, if a PO is there, how the PO has moved within the system, where the gaps in terms of either it did not move to the right channel or following approvals were not there. Those type of reports can be automated and generated directly through this type of automation. This is what is called as a process mining. It gives you a direct report in terms of these are the missing gaps. Then as an auditor, your role is elevated. Now you know the problems, what are the problems, and then you become more as a consultant and give advice in terms of how do you resolve those problems. And that is where the real value addition does come. Identifying the observations, if you're going to take so much time identifying the observations, your time in advisory aspect of internal audit gets reduced. And if the technology can be used very effectively to identify the observations, then you can spend more time in giving solutions which are really value added and which will be really remembered by the client. If you are able to solve one problem which they are having, it is really remembered for a long time and it is appreciated also. Robots, as I said earlier, that is getting now used tremendously. I mean, it is something maybe in 4 to 5 years, you will see a lot of even medium-sized companies using this technology. Now, what happens now when robots are getting used? Somebody will say the company is going to use a robot. As an auditor, how does it impact us? It will impact us tremendously because your audit procedures will have to change. Now, if a robot has done the processes and if you're going to verify them manually, it is not going to yield any result because the answers are always going to be correct. So now your audit process has to change completely to say, is the process which is followed by the robot correct? Are there gaps in the technology? Are there possibilities of leakage in between? And you will have to get into very, very minute detail and do a very, very deep dive. Right? Robots do not make mistakes. And there are cases where people are trying to use robots even for an internal audit. Because obviously, as I said earlier, the number of people which are specializing are less. So maybe you want to use robots for very, very common activities which can be done, or downloading certain reports, preparing certain basic information. These are the areas where they can be very, very strongly used, and combination of that with other intelligence makes it very deadly. And if we are not able to understand some of these technologies and audit through these technologies, the time is not far where we can become redundant. Advanced analytics is another area which is getting used. If we are able to use this, predict what are going to be the future risk and how, and quantify the potential risk, it can be very, very useful. There are examples which says that somebody did an analysis or data mining of the entire customer of a very large customer patterns, procurement patterns of a very, very large retail outlet, one of the largest in the world. And they were able to find out that if a man purchased a diaper, along with that, they also purchased a beer. So should you stack it nearby so that it is easy? So those type of intelligence is getting developed. If this is the pattern, this could be the future. This is also used in anticipating demand. What should be my procurement plan be? The way I am ordering the MRP and manufacturing resource planning or my procurement planning can undergo a drastic change. And there are a lot of reports. If you see somebody does a Google search, there are reports from McKinsey or various other large organizations which will say the savings that people have been able to make through use of the technology is quite tremendous. Role of the internal auditor in use of the modern technology, because what we have seen is that how the companies will use these technologies. Now, what do we as an auditor do? So, for example, when the companies are implementing some of these technologies, there is a technology partner, there are process owners, and that is where our role comes in. We can be the bridge, we can provide the right checklist, we can provide the right controls which should be inherent in the technology so that it becomes foolproof. There are no scope for leakages. There is an audit of the technology that can be done. What are the potential risks, potential leakages? So those are the areas where the internal auditor, because of the process knowledge that they have, can be a very, very strong partner and a very, very good opportunity that we have. Suggesting areas for potential automation is another area which we have to play a very, very active role. What are the activities that are being done manually, whether they can be automated, how they can be automated, what are the best solutions? What are the results of the automation that has to also be audited? The human intelligence on the technology is very, very important, because to know that whether it is in the right direction or in the wrong direction, what parameters and exception reports should be generated within the technology, a tremendous role can be played there. So if we are able to understand the technology, we can play a very, 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 very key role in ensuring that it is successfully implemented. Another area, what happens in the technology, a lot of people believe that once I have SAP, all my problems will get solved because SAP will do everything. No, SAP will not do everything. It will need the right data. It will need the right input. It will need the right implementation. And that is where the human role is very, very important. That is where the internal auditor's role is very, very important, to ensure that the right processes are followed, right input is happening, right type of a training is given, right awareness is created, and he can play a very, very critical role in all these activities. And this can really, take your level one level higher. Now you are being more as a consultant to the management. It is like an Akbar Birbal situation where you are advising the management in the right way. The role becomes much more elevated from a person who was verifying vouchers to a person who is making suggestions on future. How do you go forward? That's a drastic upgradation as far as the value chain is concerned. Some of the examples which are there in terms of use of technology to strengthen internal controls, predefined reports. So today, if you do an audit, a lot of time is spent or there are standard observations that there are PO without PR, or POs and the invoices are not matching, three-way controls are not matching. These are some of the standard observations which are there. This can completely get standardized through use of technology. And once these get standardized, your level of involvement is at a higher level. As I said earlier, automated exception reporting of unusual transactions. What is unusual is something that needs to be defined. For that, your experience, sixth sense as an auditor becomes very, very important. We have seen, especially in case of credit card companies, where you get if you make a large transaction, you get a call. Or if you do a transaction in a foreign country, you definitely get a call. These are the internal controls which they have set up that these are the potential risks that if a transaction is done and the source is Thailand, source is an African country, these are the potential fraud risk areas. Immediately a call is given to the customer to know whether the transaction is a genuine transaction, not a genuine transaction. So for example, if a debit is there at 5 o'clock in the night, you definitely get a call from the credit card companies. There is an automated call which comes to identify that fraud risk, whether it is a fraud risk or a genuine transaction. And this is where if such parameters are smartly set in the system, it really helps to cut down the fraud risk. A selection of areas where a deep dive is required, it can give you good indicators that these are the red flags. Identify the red flags through the technology, do a deep dive and get a right result. Automation of a lot of standard audit processes will reduce a lot of time. Credit risk assessment is one area where technology is used in detail, because today you have CPE reports, you have social media, you have other physical verifications which can be done. But an online search about a person, about his credit history, because the data now is everything is available online. A lot of information is available online. This is one area where people are using it very, very extensively. Dashboards, designing of dashboard and exception reports. I have created one example for the benefit of the participants that how can such dashboards be useful, which I will show. But as an auditor, you can suggest. So, for example, I had a discussion on the internal audit report recently, and the promoter said that you said MIS hona chahiye, ye hona chahiye. Can you prepare an MIS for me? Can you show me how it should be there so that my team can do it? This is one area. These are areas where there is an expectation for an hand holding from the internal auditor. So if you are able to give that, that gives a full solution. It is very easy to say that you should have this MIS, but how should it look like? What should it contain? One page MIS mein kya hona chahiye? What is beneficial to the promoter? If you have a couple of discussions at that level, it is really helpful to them also. So this is one example which I have created. You can have similar such examples, which are attractive, easy to identify. You can sort, you can filter. Maybe it gives month-wise sales, product-wise sales. It gives different tax rates. This can be designed, redesigned, multiple things can be done. This is created out of Excel. There are Excel functions, power tools which are there, slicers, and a lot of other functions which are there where you can use and create such tools. This can also be useful for audit monitoring as well as suggesting to the clients and as a value add to the client also. Another area where technology can be very, very useful is management of the audit function itself. So there are GRC is governance, risk control, softwares and tools which are available in the market where you can look at planning, monitoring, work paper management, resource management, reporting, and then tracking of the observation through the software. If you are handling multiple clients, this can be useful. Very recently, there was a request that in case of a client which has 20 or 30 SPVs and they do not have an in-house internal audit department, they wanted somebody to give the board wanted a consolidated report. In an audit committee, you have 1 hour, 2 hours. You cannot look at 20 internal audit presentations, right? So they wanted what is the India level picture. Now, if at India level you have 4, 5 multiple auditors, how do you consolidate? How do you bring everything on the common platform? So this is area where technology can be used, that you have a standardized scope, bring everything in a common technology, and you have a summarized report which can be shared to the senior management, board, audit committee, where they can get an India level visibility of what are the common threads or what are the critical observations which are there at a country level, at a complete business level, and not only a single entity. And these are the sort of expectations which are getting built up. And unless you use technology, this becomes extremely difficult to do it manually. It is not possible. Or the time which can go manually is going to be so cumbersome that you will never be remunerated for it. Some of the benefits which are quite obvious is productivity, efficiency, cost, utilization of resources. But the most important is focusing on non-conventional audit areas. Because we spend 70-80% of our time doing routine activities, and very little time is left to provide value addition, to look at something which is non-conventional. In fact, it has to be reversed, where we spend more of our time thinking rather than really doing the ground execution. Execution can be left to technology. With the help of technology, you reduce the time on execution and you spend more time in thinking and to see what is the way forward, where can I add value, what is the problem, where can there be a problem, what is the potential risk. If we continuously brainstorm, continuously think about such issues, you will definitely come up with something which is very, very value added, and then provide that to the client. This section is on the SMEs, which is there of a lot of interest to a lot of people in terms of, yes, artificial intelligence, advanced analytics, ये सब बड़ी बड़ी कंपनी के लिए है. What can be done by the small people, small companies, yes, and small chartered accountants, SME chartered accountants? How can that be used? It is a myth that technology can be used only by large companies. Even medium-sized small firms, small companies can use it to their advantage. These are some of the obvious names. Excel is there, Microsoft Access is there. There is a software called Tableau, which is very good for presenting data and analysis of the data. Power BI is an Excel function, which is very good. IDEA, ACI is another tool. These are all the tools which can be used. These are not exorbitantly expensive. Excel we use daily. Excel has some of its limitations. Most easy to use is Excel because we are used to. But some of the other functions are not very different as compared to Excel. If you are good at Excel, you will be able to migrate to some of these very easily. But Excel has a limitation in terms of number of rows, columns, and once the data becomes very bulky, it becomes difficult to do there. Some of the standard Excel functions which can be very, very well used to do a very good audit. Slicer is a function which can be used where you scrutinize the data or you analyze it in such a manner that you get it in a very simple format. If you have a complete large database, you analyze it and you create a dashboard where you get a completely simplified data. And once you have a data in a simplified manner, you will be able to interpret it very, very easily. So there are examples where people use this and create a dashboard where on daily basis you can look at, okay, which of my branches sold more, which has sold less. I'm talking about if you have multiple retail outlets, this retail outlet's sales are going down, this retail outlet sales are going up, this product is going down, this is going up. And based on that, the audit procedure sometimes can be designed, or the management also can decide their own policies, processes, if they have to run a discount scheme, if they have to run a program, or if they need to get worried about something which is going wrong somewhere. This can be very, very useful. Pivot table is very commonly used in audit when you have to summarize the data. Aging of PO, inventory aging, these are some of the standard functions which are used by auditors to look at the data analysis and bring something out. But my caution is that the pivot table analysis itself is not the report. It is a starting point of the report. One of the common mistakes which is there is that we do an analysis aging of open PO and put it in the report. Now, aging of the open PO is only the data which needs to be further analyzed. Out of that, you need to look at why it is open, what was the reason, whether is there a financial implication, is there no financial implication, is there a fraud risk, and then identify your observations out of that. Just do not paste the data in the report or just an information in the report. That is not adding any value. VLOOKUP, if you are comparing two database, VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, these are common functions which are used. So if you have a payroll file and a payroll master, you do a VLOOKUP. If you have the sales master and this customer sales data, you do a VLOOKUP and see if there are missing information, if there are gaps which are there, uncommon information which is there. So VLOOKUP is very, very useful in that. In SAP, if you have the stock details and you have the procurement or the inward register, you map those details and see if there is a material which is procured but not used, material procured but not consumed. All those data analysis can be done through VLOOKUP, and as an auditor, you can ask the right questions based on reading of that data. The interpretation of the data is very, very important, and that is where the human mind will always have an edge over the technology. Is how do you interpret the data? How do you read the data? Macros is something where you have a repetitive function. You can use macros to reduce your time drastically. I had given an example earlier where if you have quarterly audits and if you have a standard requirement of a client that every quarter you need to give me this assurances that this is okay. You can run macros. You will get your results very quickly. And after further analysis, you will be able to give your reports in a very, very shortened period of time. Saving of time in today's world is very, very important. What type of skills do we require? Do we need to be software engineers? No. But what we need to understand, have a general IT knowledge, we need to understand technology, and we need to understand how do we get the work done from the people who can use the technology. So for example, if you are internal auditor and if you are leading a project, there is a technology partner who is implementing an artificial intelligence software or an analytical tool or a robotic program or a robot, you need to be able to make him do the right things because he is a technology guy. He can write the program, but you need to give him right instructions that this is what I want. You give me what I want. If you know what you want, the other person will be able to provide you that. Another skill which is very, very critical is to do a data mining. Today, when you start an audit, you get that, especially now in COVID, you say SAP license, aapko de diya, SAP access de diya. Now you do your own audit. Now, once the data is downloaded from SAP, if there are thousands of rows and columns, what are you going to make out of that data? How do you make sense out of the data? That is a very, very critical skill that an internal auditor needs to have, especially because he has to go into the minute detail and a deep dive. Deep dive is something which is really expected today and not a surface touching. This is a small chart where on the maturity level, where are we is an analysis that we need to do for ourselves. Do we do not understand data analysis, or we are completely enabled, or we are somewhere in between? And can we move one step ahead? This is useful for the type of clients we have and also for a self-assessment also, that whether we understand, how much we understand, what we do not understand. And if we are aware about what we don't understand, we need to acquire those skills, or we need to acquire those people who have those skills. I would like to summarize of what I have said in last 2 or 3 minutes. Is the technology is going to be the only way forward. There are questions, there are articles which are written that will internal audit be redundant after some point in time. Somebody questioned me that blockchain is now going to be used at a lot of places, and with blockchain, it is virtually error-free sometimes. That is what is understood, that it will be error-free. In that scenario, what role will an internal auditor play? Will it become redundant? But my firm belief is, as I said earlier, is how do you read data? How do you interpret the data? And if you are able to move up the value chain from somebody who is just a verifier of a voucher or looking at the process to somebody who can advise that this is the right process, this process needs to be changed, these are the potential risks which we need to address, there are new processes or new policies which we need to formulate, these are the do's and don'ts that we need to do. And if you are able to migrate yourself to a consulting level, there are a lot of opportunities. The involvement of the auditor will happen at the early stage, at the planning stage. And that is where you have a very big role to play. It can help you to deliver much better and a much value-added things. Continuous upgradation and investment in technology is the need of the hour. So there is definitely a need that we need to invest in technology. We need to have some audit software, some audit tools, be it any one of them. That is how we can improve our practice and take it to the next level. Even in terms of a marketing pitch, that if you are able to show to your client that I have an audit tool which will help you do my audit better, your chances of getting that work becomes that much greater. And as it is said that maximum coverage in minimum time is in the need of the hour today, because time is something which is very, very crucial. Resources are scarce, so that is something we need to be mindful about. Yeah, we can have the question answers. How are we taking? Sir?
Prashant, I think those are scheduled at the end of the session.
At the end of the session, straight away?
Yeah.
Sure. Then I'll stop sharing. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for those wonderful comments, Prashant sir, and enlightening us on the various technologies that we can use and the expectations of our stakeholders, of our clients. So moving on to the next session, I think I would welcome CAS Deepika. She is a certified credit analyst. She is a qualified chartered accountant, of course, and has a diploma in information system audit, that is DISA, and she will be presenting key aspects of digital forensics. A little bit about her background. She has handled various assignments involving audit analytics, exception reporting, application review, ERP remediation, ITGC controls, IFCs for banks and NBFCs and manufacturing companies. Further, she is a special invitee to the Digital Accounting and Assurance Committee of South Indian Regional Committee of ICAI. Further, she is a joint secretary of Women's Committee of Institute of Internal Auditors, Madras chapter, and a faculty of SIRC of ICAI on the ITT and advanced ITT trainings. And she is a guest lecturer at various educational institutes on various topics like blockchain, IT audits, and automations. Ma'am, please take it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And very happy to address you all today on the key aspects of digital forensics. I hope I'm loud and clear. Yes, sir. And my screen is visible?
Yeah. Screen is visible.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So today, before going into the slides on discussing about digital forensics, first we can understand the comfort that we have as an auditor on the audit evidences. So digital forensic talks about what we say as any computer generated data, any data which is electronically generated. How are we going to trust that data? So what type of controls we need to ensure to accept the data as an audit evidence? So that is the first aspect of digital forensics. And the second aspect of digital forensic is forensic audit, where there is a crime that has been already committed and there are parties to the crime. There is an investigation going on and we need to further investigate and reconstruct evidences and produce before the court of law, and then we are trying to prove someone guilty. So both aspects of forensics, both aspects of digital forensics are important as an auditor. That is the investigation angle of forensic audit as well as the plain acceptance of digital records as evidence for audit. So before going into our slides, I will just run you through a tool. So I have, I hope there's a small dialog box which comes with a plain untitled JPG Snow. This is a tool which could deduct any modification or addition to any image file or PDF file that we receive as audit evidence. Okay, let's take an example. We now all are doing remote audit, right? We are accepting mails, we are accepting attachments that are sent in mails, we are also accepting evidences that are like photos from WhatsApp. So we ask the client to send this in photocopy of this voucher, photocopy of this invoice, photocopy of this event. Let's say we are auditing a NPO, we want to do performance audit. We ask them for photocopy of the event that was conducted based on this particular fund. So there are so many places where we deal with PDF documents and images, right? So how are we assuring ourselves that these images are not edited or modified? So it is possible, right? The same event some other NGO has conducted, that same image he is giving, like just changing the name of the banner. It is possible, right? Because now we have so much of technology which can actually modify pictures and create some fake pictures, right? So this is a digital forensic tool. It's an open source tool. Okay, the name of the tool is JPG Snoop only. So open source means tools which are available in public domain. The code of the tool is available in public domain for public use. Okay, it's not a paid licensed software, so it is available for everyone to use. So I'm just going to file and I'm giving open image, and just plain I'm going to take some passport size image now for the time being for the class. So if you see, the image is loaded. So this is the image that is loaded. Below we can see the small thumbnail of the image. Then we have this much of information which is called the metadata of the image. That is, in digital forensic, what we are doing is whatever record we are getting, okay, in front end, in our desktop, it is going to be viewed as a particular screen or an image or a video. But behind it, we would have learned in our school days or when we started learning computer, that computer processes zeros and ones, bits, bytes. There were so many things we would have learned, NAC, network card, MAC binding, so many different terms we would have learned on how computer converts a key click into particular string and then reads it into a machine language, right? So like that, for an image also, we have something called as a metadata. So this metadata is getting generated. Okay, so more than digital forensic tool, we can call it as a tool which is reading the internal construction of a particular image. Okay, so if you see, it is the name of the file you get, then you get actually in which tool it was opened. Actually, it was opened in a Windows photo editor. In which IP it was opened. Okay, the machine which was used to open that file in the editor. What was the timestamp of the modification that was done? What is the compression of the image? Okay, date and time of the original image. See, original image was taken on 17/1/2019 at 2:10 p.m. This is actually in a EXIF. This is the camera configuration actually, and later it was edited. Okay, in a different tool. Okay, so like that you get the entire history of all the data, dots and dashes which are forming this image. So if you just scroll down, this keeps coming, and at the end of the thing, actually the tool also gives us the assessment. Okay, class 1 image is processed or edited. So now once you get this output, whether it is edited, modified, or it is there in the original form, after that we can further investigate the source of this image, who edited, why they edited, what is the requirement. Okay, and then we have to take a decision whether we can accept the particular image as an audit evidence or not. So let's say we are trying to accept a rent agreement or a property agreement. Okay, these are all critical documents which we want to ensure that it is 100% true. Let's say it's a FD receipt. Okay, these are all going to be critical audit evidences that we need to physically verify, but because of the remote audit requirements which we are doing currently because of COVID and pandemic, it is very essential for us to ensure the company's going concern and the stability and the liquidity of the company is protected. So even though on a general aspect, we are not going for investigation during a normal audit procedure, it is whenever there is a concern. So we move to the slide. Whenever there is a concern during the audit, okay, if there is a low risk item, less concern, we are not going to probe further for whether we are required to do further investigation. Do we need to do some background check for the digital evidence which is provided? Do we need to further probe into the matter? Is there a escalation required? So depending on the concern, okay, if we have the comfort factor, yes, we will not further investigate. But when there is a red flag, so the concern here is actually the red flag that we identify during audit. If there is a red flag, how are we going to manage it? And how are we going to address it in our audit? So red flags, whenever we get, whether we want to further investigate or whether we want to accept the audit evidence, is a key important parameter that we need to understand. So you just, I hope from here, like till here, we are able to follow. So next we'll go into what is actual digital forensic. So digital forensic is a scientifically driven method to preserve, collect, validate, analyze, interpret and document digital evidences. Okay, so it is like suite of tools. It is not like one tool, one item, one analysis that we are going to do, but it is going to be a suite of tools where each tool will be used for different purposes, where we are ensuring the original audit evidence which is collected is preserved. We are opening only copies of the product, and we are trying to validate the copies of the product. We are going to interpret what the original electronic evidence is telling. We'll document the result and we'll present to the people whom have appointed us. If it is going to be plain internal audit where we want to do specific areas of fraud risk for a particular quarter, that time we can use these type of digital forensic techniques. If it is going to be a cyber security review, which we are going to do as part of IT general controls for one quarter, there also again we can use digital forensic techniques. Apart from that, you are appointed as a forensic auditor for an accounting fraud, or it can be a criminal fraud. Then that place also digital forensic techniques apply. So here in digital forensic, what we are talking about is essentially only the manner in which we are going to read a particular evidence. It can be an image, it can be a PDF file, it can be a hard disk, it can be a mobile phone, it can be a pen drive, it can be a laptop, it can be anything. How are you going to handle a digital evidence? So why I'm stressing on the word evidence? We need to understand. So whatever we get, if we start using it, what happens is the system will keep overwriting on the disk. Like, let's take an example of a plain old CD or a DVD. So the disk, CD disk which we use, if we turn the disk and see, we can see the place in which it is written. Like if the movie is written for half the page, or if the tally data is written for, let's say, 2 GB, and the capacity of the DVD is 4 GB. We can see some lines that are there covering the glary area of the disk, apart from the opaque layer. The opaque layer we cannot write. The second layer where it is written, we can see the volume in which the data is written, right? So what it is doing actually, it is converting whatever media we are writing into a particular format, and it is writing that in a particular manner where it will be able to retrieve in a particular manner. Now, let's say I am going on opening the file again and replacing that file. Actually, it will overwrite the disk. So every time, so now we have to use this technology on a laptop. In our laptop, what happens is we have a different way of writing in a media drive. So we have something called as HDD and SDD. HDD or SDD. Some laptops come hybrid, which has SDD also and HDD also. So here also the writing is similar, but it is going to be little different, where actually for optimizing storage, it will keep rewriting the logs of the hard disk. So what will happen is every time we open a laptop, we are trying to open a browser, open an ID, open a mailbox, open Outlook, it will keep rewriting the logs. So preserving the original evidence is very important, because every time it is overwriting, we are creating new evidence on that particular system. So whenever we are trying to do a forensic analysis and we are trying to identify a particular crime or reconstruct a particular crime, it is very, very important that we are not overwriting our logs into the particular system or the evidence which is collected for forensic analysis. So preservation of evidence is the first and the foremost aspect which we need to understand. That is, let's say you get a pen drive. You will not directly open the pen drive and put some data, create working sheets, nothing we will do. We will first do system imaging or media drive imaging of the particular pen drive and create a copy. Okay. So after we create a copy, on the copy only we will do the analysis itself, because we need to preserve the original evidence. So we say generally when a mail is received from the client, keep that mail very safe, download and keep also, and always ensure that that is saved, folded or marked, flagged, starred, so that actually those are all our evidences, right? We want to preserve it in the original form. We will not delete it. We will not modify it. Even if we are putting reply all trail, we will ensure that it is untampered, right? So like that, preservation of audit evidence becomes a very important aspect in digital forensic. So the another term which is used in digital forensics is e-discovery. So where in e-discovery, we are just meaning any analysis of electronic evidence is e-discovery. But the traditional term used for this is digital forensics. So we are continuing to use that term. But the gambit of areas or applications which we are discussing today is e-discovery. That is how we are trying to collect, preserve, validate electronically generated evidence. So why we need digital forensic? So basically, we want to preserve any computer related data which can be presented in the court of law as an audit evidence. Because once we decided that there is a red flag, once we decided that there is a concerning area, okay, and there is a high risk area, fraud risk area, and we are going to probe into a particular matter, which may lead to a litigation or it may lead to a crime which is being uncovered. Okay, so this is all done before actually a fraud is established, right? The investigation is before fraud is established. So now, whenever we are going to probe into an high risk or fraud risk area, it is very important that we are ensuring that all the original evidences are kept safe so that when a fraud is uncovered or a threat is materialized, we will be having sufficient audit evidence to provide to the management or to the police or to the court to actually make that person liable for the events. It can be money fraud, it can be accounting fraud, window dressing fraud, it can be anything, even non-compete. Like we had recently a management audit where management wanted to just analyze the mailboxes of all the marketing people to see how many people are actually talking to the competitors, giving price sensitive information. Though they are non-listed, the impact of price sensitive information stays same for all the companies, right? So if we two are bidding on the same customer, okay, what is the comfort that the owner is having, the management is having, that my marketing team is working for the benefit of our company alone? So in that places also digital forensics will play an important role. So it can be for anything, it can be for management. So as the previous speaker rightly pointed, now auditor is always looked upon for value addition. What value we bring to the table, what value we bring to the business, what value we bring to the board, what type of advices we are able to give for making their business more efficient, effective, and also to ensure that the company has good governance in place. So on all these aspects, digital forensics and e-discovery plays a very, very vital role. So that's the reason why we need digital forensics. So digital forensic, as we discussed, can be after a fraud is uncovered or for a potential fraud which we are having a high risk area. Then it can be for forgery, that can be for intellectual property theft. So if the marketing team or some production team is giving out designs, bomb information, or competitors information outside, all that is IP or theft. So then we have the plain data theft. Let's say we are in an audit firm. Our article is having a separate hard disk where he is having entire server backup in this hard disk. He can just share it with another audit firm. It can go to maybe our client's competitor is there in another audit firm which is having this data. So data theft is like very, very, very critical and very sensitive. And on today's context, where data is the new oil, it is like very, very important, where we need to protect data integrity. And using digital forensic techniques, actually we'll be able to identify how much of data has gone out, how much of data is there, how much was used for illegitimate purpose. All this we'll be able to identify. So next area is when the company is already bankrupt and maybe it is under IBC or it is under RP, resolution professional. So in such cases where we want to identify where the money has gone, whenever we want to do a cash trail, where we want to build a cache trail, there also we will be using digital forensic techniques to identify whether the company has tampered with any of the evidence that is available. So inappropriate internet use. So all these areas are places where digital forensics is very, very useful. So what is the investigation triad? So here, whatever we discussed about the tool, is it the auditor only he should do, or he can take help of external expert? Yes, always the auditor can take external expert support. But what is the components of the triad? The first one is the vulnerability assessment. So this is the main place where auditor plays an important role. That is, once we identify that a particular area is having fraud risk, there is a vulnerability, there is a control lapse. If we further probe into this particular item, we will identify or discover any fraud. Okay, so after the auditor identifies the vulnerability, he escalates investigation. So investigation can be an interview, it can be a mail review, it can be his mailbox review, his laptop review. You can do any sort of investigation and further audit procedures where you want to identify really what has happened. Then intrusion response. So once you have investigated, you have found out something, now you want to respond to it. So that's where it comes, whether you need to report to the management, escalate to the regulator. It can be a fraud. Frauds need to be reported to MCA, SEBI, RBI. So depending on the industry in which the company is working, whether it should be escalated to the management or to the regulator or to the shareholders or to the police, depending on the context, there should be a response that is designed. So investigation triad is a very important aspect where generally it will be team of people who are working on the investigation triad. It can be 3 different teams where the auditor who's having knowledge of business and risk is doing the vulnerability assessment. Then it can be a private investigator who is going to probe into the matter if it is going to be criminal investigation. If it is going to be digital investigation, then it can be actually forensic teams which can actually work with the forensic tools and identify what has gone wrong or what could have gone wrong. So what is an important area in investigation and e-discovery is reconstruction of the scenario. So whatever vulnerability the auditor has identified, the investigator will try to reconstruct the scenario using multiple techniques. What could have gone wrong? What are the data that are available? Depending on the data, images, timestamps, he will be creating a new trail of events. So like now we saw the image where we read when was the photo taken, when was the photo modified, which tool it was modified. So now let's say I have like 10 photos like this. So 10 photos, what is the relationship I have? Okay, is it trying to tell me some sequence of events? So like that, we have to reconstruct the evidence and we have to build scenarios and reconstruct scenarios to ensure that we are able to visualize and prove what could have gone wrong. So after that is the response. Response is the regulatory aspect, where what type of escalations that should happen and what type of liability we have to pass on to the person who has committed the fraud. So digital evidences could be any multimedia, emails, computers, laptops, browser histories, logs, events, tablets, any personal device assistance, USB, flash drives, HDD, SSD. So HDD, SSD is the hard disk. Laptops and computers will be like here also it is like hard disk only we will be taking as evidence, but external hard disk is also there. So we have mentioned this separately. Then SIM cards. What type of calls we have taken, what type of images we had in our phone. So everything we'll be able to take and analyze during a digital forensic engagement. And everything we should actually analyze during a digital forensic engagement. It is very, very essential and important. So what are the steps we need to follow and what is the technique we need to follow? So preservation of state of the evidence is very, very important. Like the device, whatever you take, as soon as it comes to your hand, there should be no rewriting that is happening. So we should never work with the original evidence. Now, let's say we want to analyze a laptop. let's say there's an ex-employee. Already the employee has put paper and management feels like he's a high profile employee who's taking like mid-managerial level. They want to actually investigate and see what is the reason he is leaving. Okay. So, or let's say they already have a fraud that has been identified, or they are suspecting a purchase fraud, procurement fraud in the management, where there's one key employee in purchase through whom all the transactions are routed. So in all these cases, when we get some evidence or we get some device for analysis, first most important aspect which we need to follow is preservation of the state of evidence. That is, we need to ensure that device is not opened by us. What we have to do is, let's say we receive a laptop for e-discovery. What we have to do is, we will not boot the laptop. Because if we boot the laptop, we may have like, I don't know if you have seen the movie Shivaji. It's a Rajnikant movie where if the laptop will have some self-destructive tool. So if you put the password once wrong, it will actually crash everything. So there are different tools actually. If you open the laptop itself, it will crash. Okay. So like that, they can actually put some self-destructive tools on the laptops or in the mobile phones. So what we have to do is, we will not boot the system at all. We will actually remove the laptop. Okay. Dismantle the laptop, take the hard disk, take image of the hard disk in another hard disk. Okay. There are tools for taking system images where actually it will take the image in the original form. It will take a detailed image in the original form. And this particular image, okay, we can take any number of copies of image. It is not essential that the first thing itself, like only once you have to take. This process may take minimum of 4 to 5 hours. Okay, because let's say 1 TB hard disk, to create exact image of this hard disk, if we use tools, hardwares and all, it may take at least 4 to 6 hours. Sometimes it may take more also, depending on the volume of data available. After we take the system image, what we will do is, we will connect it to our forensic lab. Okay, so forensic lab will be equipped with all the tools which are required for digital forensics. So like now I showed you one tool. Next I'm going to show you another tool. Like that, actually we have n number of tools which we can use for different types of discovery, depending on the context. Now in the image itself, actually geotagging is possible. Now if you take some photos which we take in our phone, actually it comes with geotagging. We can see the latitude and longitudinal information. Then we can see IP information. All these are like very, very critical for our audit evidence. So like that, depending on the context, we will be using tools. Okay, so in the tool currently we use, geotagging is not possible, but maybe some other tool has that facility. So we need to see the series of events where a particular images are taken, whether really it is in the office, whether it is really in the stores, or it is outside the stores. Okay, a particular, let's say, a particular image of a particular warehouse is received. Okay, this much of goods are there in the warehouse. We have a image. Now we want to know whether really that is in that warehouse only, or it is some other client's warehouse. He is just taking the photo and giving us. So in that time, actually geotagging is very essential or very important. Okay, and we can use that for our forensic analysis. So similarly, we can use different tools. So what we'll do is, we will take this particular hard disk, we'll connect to a different laptop or a lab or a computer where these digital forensic tools are available, and then we do analysis of data for different evidences. And so now the tools will act as a browser. So in the same example what we saw, so this is a plain tool. So after you open the particular image or PDF file, so here we can actually change whether it's a movie, thumbnail, PDF file, Photoshop files, okay, digital negative. So these are all different file formats which it can read. So once it reads the format, instead of opening it through our photo viewer, okay, we may have different photo viewers. So instead of using that, we are going to use this particular tool as a browser to see the front end and back end of the information. Okay, so all forensic tools will work like this only, where it is acting as a browser and giving us some extra information than a normal GUI. Okay, that is graphical user interface, or our desktop view of the system alone is not given, but more data is given by a forensic tool. Okay, so like this, we will be using different forensic tool for analysis. So once we do open this images of the evidence or the device which we are going to do forensic analysis, we will reconstruct evidence. So event reconstruction is what we already discussed, where we will try to do series of scenario analysis and reconstruct the scenario in which the fraud has happened. So now on this context, we will see one more tool. So I have actually taken one 4 GB pen drive now. So this 4 GB pen drive is actually connected, having very few data, because the more data we have, forensic tools will take more time to work. Okay. So what I have done is I have just 1 minute. I'll open this drive. So this PC. Okay. So this 106 is the drive I have put. So it has like 3 images and 1 folder. This has some challans, okay, some PDF challans, one Excel sheet for reimbursement, and 3 photos. Now, let's say I'm deleting 1 photo. Let's say I'm deleting image number, or just for your viewing, I'll just make it what are the photos. So let's take, this is the pen drive used by an employee. Okay, for the current scenario, we'll take it like it's a pen drive used by an employee. He is having some personal information, some bank pay slips, and some passport copy, and some reimbursement claims and challans which he has done. So now let's say I am that employee. I am deleting challan number 9106 because it's some my personal account. I have deposited that money. I don't want that pay slip to come to knowledge of anyone. So I have deleted the image. Okay. So now let's say we are going to probe some investigation on this employee. He is like cashier in a particular branch or something like that. Let's say we want to probe an investigation. So now it comes for digital forensic analysis. So now I have actually already named this pen drive as 106. Okay, evidence number 106. So now as a forensic analyst, what I will do is I will create an image of this particular drive. So taking this image will take more time. So what I have done for our webinar purposes, I'm just going to use the same evidence, but for forensic analysis, we should not use. We will take copy of the pen drive and then only we will use. I'm using a tool called Access Data FTK Imager. Access Data FTK Imager. This is a very popular tool which is used for digital forensic analysis. So I'm just going to give file and I'll give add an evidence. So what is the evidence I'm having? I'm having a physical pen drive. I'll just give next. So physical drive, 2 physical drives are available in the system. One is my HDD, that is 1 TB hard disk of my laptop. Second is the USB, which I have booted now. So it is showing both. So 4 GB USB flash drive. I'll just give finish. So what is happening is this is the back end of the drive, hexadecimals. So the zeros and ones which the machine is reading. Okay, these are the hexadecimals. You can see how much of data is available. Okay, so now the evidence tree is there. Okay, left hand side, I'm just going into the partition. So it has, this is the partition is basically in my system, this partition. No, this is the partition they are meaning. That is, if you go to this PC, so this is the partition they are meaning. Autopsy, this and all. Okay, and 106 is an evidence. I have root folder, I have unallocated space. So if you see, there is February 21 one folder, then I have system volume information, then there's some unallocated space. So now if you see here, I have lot of data which is available here. Then I have one more folder here that is also unpartitioned. Okay, so I'm just going to the root folder. Now if you see, actually, this is the hexadecimal, so which currently we will not try to understand hexadecimal, so we will leave it. We will see this. So February 21, there's one folder, but currently if we open normal browser view, there is only 2 images, 9105, 9107. But here I can see 9128, 9108, 9106. Actually, this 9106 is an image that we deleted. Right? This is the image, the pay-in slip, which we deleted. Okay, beneficiary name, some amount which is paid into some bank account. So what is happening? It is able to recover the data which is there in the media drive of the particular media device. So even if you delete, it will be able to read it, because the deletion process of a media drive is overwriting it with some data only. So forensic tools, what it will do is it will be able to take out layers of information and reconstruct audit evidence. So let's say we are putting a mailbox. Actually, it will be able to delete all the, it will be able to recover all the deleted mails. If you're putting a laptop, let's say one important folder is there, it will be able to actually recover all the deleted files from that folder. So, but if we are overwriting it so many times that it is not able to recover, then it is a problem. So only we are saying that as an auditor, I will not open that system and work wherein I don't want to overwrite any information. I will take a copy, and in that copy, I will keep externally and use only such browsers to open. Because if I use now Access Data FTK to open this pen drive, nothing will change in the pen drive, because I'm using this as a browser only, not directly on my hard disk. I'm not working. I don't know if the concept is clear. The thing is, we are working this as an external agent. Okay, the evidence, we will take it as an external agent. The browser will be the basis which is used for opening this external agent. This will protect, using this Access FTK imager or forensic tool will ensure and protect my data in this external agent or the external image file which I created is untampered. So if you see, one photo I deleted now, but already I have some deleted images. Okay, so that also is available now. Okay, so like this, we will be able to take, so these are all open images. So this is there in the drive also. 9105 is there in the drive also, in the browser also. Even deleted is available. So similarly, if I go to this, there also I will be able to see similar information. So what I'm trying to convey is this digital forensics is not just for forensic audits. It can be used for anything. The only thing is, when we are aware of such digital crimes that can be committed, or digital evidences that could be disrupted or deleted, it is always good if we are able to do this before accepting any evidence as an audit evidence, to ensure that we are ensuring the integrity of data which we are seeing before we audit. So on this aspect, we will go to the next area which we need to understand, that is the legal basis for digital forensic. So here we have different acts which are requiring different compliances for ensuring that we have digital or e-records. So we have Indian Evidence Act, which defines electronic evidence. We have section 65B, where we talk about what can be accepted as an electronic evidence. Then we have IT Act, which again gives a definition of a evidence. Then we have Companies Act, which mandates that your data should be available in the original created form and it should not be modified. So whatever backup we are going to maintain for 8 years should be in a original form in which it was created. Actually, the same thing only is required in Indian Evidence Act also. Companies Act is reiterating that. So how are we going to ensure that? So for that basic digital forensics, at least we have to apply on the data to ensure that audit trail is maintained, and if we are protecting the integrity of the data in the original created form. So if we are a bank, then we have Bankers Book Evidence Act, which is also talking about retention of electronic evidence. So whatever we discussed is the process which is summarized in the slide. First, identify the data, preserve the evidence, then analyze the evidence using a forensic tool, document the evidence and present it. So this will ensure the data is saved and protected of integrity. It is protecting organizations' money and value. Okay. It is having data which can be produced in the court of law to ensure that the guilty is being put to trial, and we will be able to efficiently track down any intruders to our system. So that's the main reason why we need digital forensic process. If you don't follow this directly, if you go, actually this will not be possible. You will not be able to track a person. You will not be able to, if we overwrite the logs, we will not be able to track a person. If you are not saving the evidence, you will not be able to punish him. This too will happen. But this process of digital forensic should be followed to ensure that we are able to preserve the evidence and also track the perpetrator. So now we'll go to one simple example. Will WhatsApp messages be admissible in the court of law under section 65B? So 65B of the Evidence Act, we already saw that it is giving us parameters of digital evidence. So what are the parameters it is giving? So it is giving that at the time of creation of electronic record, the computer must be computer that produced it must be in regular use. Okay, it should be live in the system. Okay, it should be regularly and ordinarily fed in the system. Okay, like regularly and ordinarily means only from the front end. It cannot be induced through a SQL injection. It cannot be directly included to the database. It cannot be done that way. Okay, computer was working properly. It was in a working condition. Then duplicate copy must be a reproduction of the original electronic record. Okay, duplicate copy must be a reproduction of the original electronic record. So now let's say a WhatsApp message is a forwarded message. So is it original form? While forwarding, can you change it? Or let's say while sharing that message, can you change the content of the message? Yes, we can change it, right? So if we forward it, is the message we are forwarding, for the message we are forwarding, are we the original person who generated that record? Who is the original person who generated the record? So all these are like big questions, but we have maximum of the information which is shared in WhatsApp only. Like even our client communications, our internal team communications, even inside a client office, if we see all employees have WhatsApp groups in which they are sharing data and communicating data, right? So in this, what does our Indian courts have to say? So actually there are different types of evidences under our Evidence Act. So direct evidence, circumstantial evidence, documentary evidence, oral evidence, primary evidence, and secondary evidence. Okay, so a forwarded message, sharing a message, all this will not be a direct message, direct evidence. So primary evidence and direct evidence is very, very important. That is, it should be like that person only generated it and it is provided or submitted by that person itself. Okay, if that parameter is not there, it goes into what is called as secondary evidence. So secondary evidence means you are producing a copy of it behalf of someone. So in our WhatsApp messages, there are contradictory views that are available in different courts of law. But primarily, many courts have told that WhatsApp messages will be secondary evidence only. So if evidence is secondary evidence, directly whatever messages you are having in electronic form, okay, will not be taken as a direct or primary evidence in the court of law. So you need to accompany it with a certificate. Okay, so to ensure authentication of the data, we have to produce a certificate which is signed by the person who generated that record. So all secondary evidences, if need to be produced in court of law, we need this production of certificate which is signed by the person who has generated that information, that information is true and correct. Only then that will be accepted in the court of law. So here we have contradictory cases, but still primarily our stand has been that it is a secondary evidence only. So irrespective of the processes which we follow for digital forensic, again, we have to ensure which is primary, which is secondary. So in social media, almost all the evidences that are generated in social media will be secondary evidence. But now come to our core forensics, which we use in audit and all, like mobile phones, email boxes, laptops, computers, there, those evidences will be primary. Okay, where we have to protect the hard disk, protect the pen drives, protect the Outlook boxes. All this will be primary evidences. Okay, so as we discussed, there are like all forensic analysis going to be tool based, where we are going to read the machine language data in machine language data itself, which is going to show us that and also ensures that evidences are untampered. So we have commercial licenses, which are like licensed paid tools, NKs, FTK, Helix, all these are like paid tools. FTK Imager, which we used alone, is free. The full FTK package is paid. Okay, I'm also using this Access Data FTK only. So in FTK also, it's a suite of tools only. NCase also is a suite of tools. Like it'll have like 10, 20 tools which are coming together as a package. Okay. So then we have open source tools also. So this open source tool is very, very famous, the Sleuth Kit. So that is called as, the brand name is called as Autopsy. So this is the tool name. So Autopsy is the tool. So that will be also doing the same work of FTK Imager. Maybe little bit interface could be different, but primarily the objective of the tool will be similar. Okay. So I'll just summarize whatever we discussed before we run out of time. So what is forensic audit is where we are trying to investigate a particular fraud after it has happened. What is digital forensic is we are trying to reconstruct evidences which are generated in electronic form to identify whether they are maintained in the original form or not. So in digital forensics, we may identify geotagging, we may identify integrity of data, modifications to data, we'll be able to read mails, we'll be able to reconstruct evidences, we may be able to recover deleted files. So all this analysis is possible in digital forensics. It is not essential that it should be done only as part of forensic auditing or forensic accounting where it is post-mortem. Okay, all forensic audits are post-mortem, but digital forensic can be used for even live data. Okay, live data, live systems before a fraud is committed, then also we'll be using digital forensic. So documentation of digital forensics, generally these tools itself provide documentation where it is giving this tree, this thing. Actually, we can actually export the logical image. We can actually export the evidences, what we created also. So that will be possible. And apart from that also, like our audit program, we need to maintain documentation of what all tools we ran, for what all tests we did, what type of scenarios we tried to populate. All that also is very, very important. So then we present it or report to the respective process owner or management or regulator, depending on the context. So I think with this, we will complete for the day, and looking forward for the Q&A session post next session.
Thank you, Deepika, for such an informative session. And I think we all can agree how important digital forensics has become in the current industry. And with that, I think we'll be moving on to the next session, which will be headed by CA Purav Gala. And he has served as a past president of an Institute of Internal Auditors, Bombay. And also he was a faculty on the corporate governance at WE School, Wellinger Institute of Management, Development and Research. He was earlier a member of Continuing Professional Education Committee of WIRC. And he's also a member of CVO CA organization and has regularly pens articles for various journals. Currently, Purav is at HIL Limited, which is Hyderabad Industries Limited, which is a part of CK Birla Group. And earlier he was heading internal audit function at RACM RPG, and he's a qualified chartered accountant and an MBA by qualification, and has started his career with Gala and Gala, and then he moved to Singhi and Company, which is a Baker Tilly assurance practice. With over 18 years of experience in internal audit, I think Purav will have a lot of information regarding the topic, which will be identifying red flags and report writing by internal audit. Please, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Karanveer, and a lovely presentation by Deepika, I must say. And in fact, Prashant also set the context for today evening, where he mentioned that technology is something that we have to embrace as auditors, as chartered accountants. And Deepika gave such a lovely presentation on how the future of audit and investigations is so bright. We do a lot of forensics in-house as well, and she mentioned it so rightly that a copy has to be maintained, retained, so that from a legal perspective, from a compliance perspective, this all will hold good in the court of law. So companies today no longer are going to sit idle if they find people you know uh, violating the code of conduct or ethics, breaching the ethics. They want to send a very strong message across to employees that if you are guilty, if you have breached the ethical line, then you will have to be punished. And that's why evidence in the form of digital forensics is gaining prominence. So without wasting much time, let me today set the context. As auditors, how do I find out where there are red flags? Prashant said use technology. Deepika said how to actually use technology and find out those critical evidences. But as auditors, how do we actually find out where there is a red flag? Let me share the presentation. Share screen. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, Purav, we
Yes,
can
sir.
see your screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me start with a fantastic line, in God we trust and all others we audit. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, Prashant has already mentioned why internal audit is necessary, what are the expectations of management and stakeholders. And today what we'll cover is, case studies where, you can actually find out which are the red flags. And lastly, what we'll cover is the significance of communication in internal audit. How do I actually bring that value add in my report writing skills so that, I can actually present and give that right perception that we are actually in the business of value addition. So what we cover is, definition of internal audit. Technically, it's an independent objective assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve an organization's operations. It helps an organization accomplish its objectives by bringing a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance process. But friends, how old is audit? Can anybody tell me? Can anybody imagine? And who has introduced audit to the entire world? It has originated from India only, and that too in BC. Can you see this man? He is the one who actually introduced audit. And in fact, he has written it in his book, Arthashastra. And beautifully, he has elaborated around 30 to 40 concepts of audit or principles of audit, which today, if you go through his book, you will be able to correlate that these are, somewhere those, accounting standards of those times. In fact, he mentions what comes in has to be measured. So in audit, what we do, what is coming in my plant, is it correctly weighed? Is it measured? Is it correctly accounted for? What goes out has to be recorded. Revenue recognition. Please read his book, and if time permitting, you will be able to correlate how old is audit. In fact, he has mentioned the role of auditors very prominently as Gopas. So audit is as old as mankind. And post-pandemic, the propensity of employees, the propensity of people to breach the ethical line has increased, which I have personally also experienced. Coming back to World War II, with the progress of management science, the concept of internal audit has regained relevance across corporate boardrooms, especially in US and Europe, when we saw industrial revolution happening, and then we saw the segregation of family-run businesses to professional managements. That's how the concept of audit has gained prominence. What is the premise? We are all aware that today stakeholders' expectation is growth, growth, and growth. But what is most important? Fast growth or strict controls or controlled growth? Management is actually responsible for establishing and maintaining the system of internal controls within the organization. They are charged with this responsibility on behalf of the organization's stakeholders, and they are held accountable for this responsibility by an oversight body. A dedicated, independent, and effective internal audit actually helps the management and the board in fulfilling the objectives. There are 4 cornerstones of audit. One is, the corporate governance, management, external audit, internal audit, and the board of directors. No longer we are considered as watchdogs. We have to be perceived and function as one who adds value. We'll see in the coming slides on how we can add values to our clients. What kind of data analysis can we do? What kind of red flag identification can we do? And how can we be an independent source of, how can we be an objective source of independent advice? Definitely, with changes in Companies Act, the level of assurance that is required from both the board, the stakeholders is increasing by the day. Focus is shifting from risk-based approach to adding value approach. And a lot of times we have seen across, should internal audit be a cost center or a profit center? Because a lot of your clients may view that, yes, this is a cost. Why doesn't it be a profit center? Why don't you give me a value add? This is always going to be a tug of war, that should internal audit always provide value add, and that should be measured in terms of savings. Savings definitely are necessary, but we are in the business of reasonable assurance, is what we should be telling to our clients. Because practically it is not possible to track or, audit for every transaction unless we are able to deploy and the right level of technology, as Prashant mentioned in the earlier presentation. So value addition should be an eventual outcome of internal audit reviews. Value addition should not be the sole focus area. Whether controls are in place or not is what is of pertinent or paramount importance. There is a lot of value in the assurance that we give. Imagine if you are a director or a board of, sitting in a board of a public listed company at 35,000 feet or at that position. How do you know that, one of your plant is running fine and is free of, ethical breaches, is free of any malpractices? There is only one way. Management, a tone at the top. Second is the right level of, corporate governance. Third is, internal audit. And fourth is your strong lines of defense, be it your finance or be it your business functions. A lot of times, there is a question, whether in-house audit is better or outsourced audit is better. I think in-house or outsourced does not matter. Professional, competent, and experienced staff is key. Oversight and responsibility of internal activity cannot be outsourced. So coordination is very vital in case you are using a outsourcing option. So as you would be delivering services to your clients, what should be projected is that you are professionally competent and you have experienced manpower, which can add value to the client. And remember, we are always driven by cost and budgets. So how do we ensure reasonable assurance? So planning the audit is very, very important. And it should now be based on, the risk register, the recommendation from statutory auditors, and if there are any requests from management or business heads or audit committee where they perceive that the risk is high. That is how an audit plan or an annual audit plan should be devised. And this is one area which requires prudent judgment. Let me show you an example. There are 4 areas. One belongs to SB or a function A. The process is CapEx. The risk description is additional cost implication due to delays in completion of the project. The other area is corporate HR. This is a risk register of a company or a risk profile of a particular company which you want to do an audit. You would go to that company, understand what kind of risks are there, and you define that these are the risks. So Second belongs to corporate HR, and it pertains to compliance, where due to engagement of contract workers in direct production process, there is a potential that the company may have to pay a fine or penalty. The third risk that you see is for an SBU business unit B, where the product margins are in negative, higher lead time for procurements, lower realization of receivables, overall increased on working capital. Stress is there on working capital, and business continuity impact in short run is also possible. The last one is is something that you see day in and day out. That is your C form collection, payment of additional sales tax and penalties if C forms are not collected on timely basis. So there is a risk rating which is given extreme, 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 and high. Okay, how can I formulate an audit plan based on this data? Is this enough? No, this is not enough. What do I need is the concept of materiality. So what I've done is I've plotted the materiality in question, and then I have collated with my risk rating, and now I will be in a much better position to formulate an audit plan for this client of mine. So now I know that capex is 3 million, human resource risk is 3 million. The biggest risk I see is business B. So this is the first area that I will take up in, suppose if I have been given 2 quarters or 3 quarters, the first area that I will take up is, this one. The second area, because it is pertaining to compliance, I would take up is of contract labor. The third I would take up is, review of project, and the fourth is of CST forms collection. But what is important, as Deepika mentioned earlier, apart from what you plan, do some areas, like rewards recognition, leave pattern of employees, security system, insurance claim settlement, ERP login review, guest house expenses. You never know, it will always throw up surprises. It will always, from my past experience in last 18 years, reviewing this kind of areas which are always unattended to, always gives some or the other surprise, and that's how value addition comes out. Red flags typically are seen in such areas, or at least you'll be able to identify. So if you want to be a business enabler, are we participating in the steering committees, task force, or senior stakeholder meetings? And what is the kind of time that the senior stakeholders is giving to you? Are we organizing training process? I think gone are those days when you used to be just doing the audit, finding fault, writing some observation, and being away from, being done with it. Today, I think what you should be telling your clients is, okay, this is the problem, this is a solution, and I'm helping you to plug this gap so that it does not recur. The client or your stakeholder wants to hear that this should not get repeated. Fine, this has happened, but it should not recur. So training sessions, organizing training sessions, or coordinating and going that extra mile, I think will help you in projecting the right perception of being a value addition. Again, you need to network with employees at plants, at various offices, create generate an internal audit charter, audit committee charter, use audit tools, budget for training your staff, and are you changing your formats of internal audit reports? How effectively are you following up? So a lot of times you do report and say that this is the agreed action plan, but a lot of times majority of the audit teams I've seen is they do not follow up on the agreed action plan. I think following up on agreed action plan will only help you to increase the respect that you would command across the audit teams. Internal audit should ideally report to the audit committee in case of a listed company, and administrative to the CEO or the managing director. I think reporting structure actually determines or demonstrates the company's perspective on corporate governance and the level of independence that is accorded to internal audit. Some of the best practices I have mentioned. Let's come to the most interesting part of this presentation, that is case studies. Let me highlight a first case study on procurement, the second one on sales, third one is on segregation of duties, fourth one is on ERP controls, and fifth one is to analyze how a fraud can happen. And definitely these are some basics, but Deepika has explained very well on how would you, once you identify or once you get a whistleblower that there is a particular activity breach or ethical breach. What are the steps? Like you take a download and then you search and then create evidence and then you may confront the employee and legally sue him. So let me just give you the base. Having an audit mind is very, very important, and understanding your business. And why not is an important word that we must all use very frequently. Irrespective, we should not be thinking that what will the person opposite me think or what is the perception. We should be asking and asking. See, this is a purchase register of a company. I've downloaded this, and if you look at this, there's a PO number, the order date, the supplier data is also given. The unit price, item code, quantity received, quantity due, quantity billed, and invoice is also given. Same supplier, same item, unit price is given, different dates when I've raised the purchase orders, and what is the quantity I have received against the respective purchase order, and what has been accounted or created for liability is also given in the last column. As an auditor, what will I do when I analyze this data? What are those things that I will identify? What are things I should pick up? So you may also receive a whistleblower saying that procurement function, somebody is not playing behaving correctly or not working properly, and that is the only lead. What will you do? You will definitely analyze data. So these kind of practices will help you to identify those red flags. So if you can look clearly, on 16/2 February, this order has been raised at abnormal time, 23:49. Definitely raises eyebrows. Okay, same item, the rate has increased from 240 to 290. Okay, what is more surprising? The first order is still open. I have raised the first order on 21st January for 15,000. Unit price is 250. I have only received 5,500. 9,500 is still pending to be received. Interestingly, this 9,500 I have received against this PO of increased price. When I raise the purchase order and when the purchase order is received by the supplier, it confirms his commitment to supply. So definitely someone is collaborating with the supplier or maybe collaborating with the supplier to cause loss to the client or the company. So what should I tell my client? Shouldn't all purchase orders be subject to periodical review? And should I not be doing a ERP review of the system frequently? Third, as a policy, should I not make sure that once a purchase order is issued, unless it is closed, I will not be able to, create another purchase order in the system? Or if there is a lead time, suppose warranting business requirement, then in case I have to make sure that the purchase order gets closed within that particular time. And once you receive that quantity, if there is an increase in rate, then that has to be approved, which needs to be reviewed periodically. Second case study. Let's see. For April and May, this is a volume and quantity discount policy of company X. For April and May, the discount policy for product P is as under. If the customer is ordering for 0 to 5,000, I will get a 5% discount on selling price. If the order quantity is 5,001 to 10,000, the discount rate on selling price is 10%. 10,020, 15, so on and so forth. I presume you are able to read this. So what you do as an auditor, you will review the status of open sales orders. Okay, let's review. So these are the customer names. This is a sales order number. This is item code. This is the product P, the order quantity, open quantity, that is quantity which is pending to be delivered, selling price, order date, and discount that is offered on order quantity based on the rate, based on the rates or the slabs that we have seen in the earlier slide. What do I do? I'll do some analysis. Let's do that analysis. Customer XYZ, customer XYZ. Order quantity is 17,500. What is dispatch is 5,500. Pending to be dispatched is 12,000. Selling price is 100. Discount is 15%. Look again at XYZ. Again, there has been an order on 11th May for 22,000. Only 7,000 has been dispatched, 15,000 is pending, and 20% discount is already given. Look at the rest of the customers. 4,500, 4480 dispatch ho gaya. Only 20 is remaining. That's fine. That can be a practice in regular parlance. But what is amazing is that it seems that we need to prove or ask the auditee is to why only 5,500 has been dispatched. Has there been a cancellation request from the customer, or is it something more? So as an auditor, what will I do is I will definitely take a dump of such customers, look at the trend, look at the pattern, who is the sales guy who's punching the order. Is there a continuous trend like this? I'll try and identify and then ask questions. And if there is something that is suspicious, definitely, I'll take the investigation route by informing my client or my superiors. As an auditor, I would definitely tell my client policy on sales discount has to be changed. And it should also state that all bulk orders should be dispatched at one shot, or in case the customer does not lift material against confirmed bulk order in 2 weeks, the discount structure shall stand revised, because this is a loss of revenue. Okay, very interesting. This Prashant spoke about technology. So I'm saying that technology is something that users are able to leverage today, and also is something that we have auditors also have to now upgrade ourselves. They're very simple examples. If you are using a ERP like SAP, Oracle, so on and so forth, BAN, every user, like a purchase function, he has been accorded certain rights to utilize certain modules. So functionality is that if he is a purchase guy, he will be allowed to generate a PO. If you are a stores guy, in stores model, you are allowed or permitted to generate a GRM. And also, if you're in stores, you will be allowed to issue material for production. So we can do a review of the ERP rights. So suppose if one gentleman has got the right to create a purchase order, the same gentleman has also got right to receive material, and the same gentleman has got the right to issue material to stores. Then physically, without the material coming in, it is possible that a transaction can happen only on paper. So what needs to be told to the client is you need to segregate duties. That a purchase guy will only be allowed to raise a purchase order. He can't do a transaction which will allow him to receive material, which will allow him to receive and issue the material as well. And this is how value add comes, because if you allow auditees to a free field and nobody is watching, the possibility or the propensity that the client or the stakeholders are taken for a ride is very, very high. Another example that we can look at, ERP controls. When I create a purchase order in the system, the user is encountering two options: to set the maximum limit for over receipt of material in percentage against order quantity, or leave the field in option 1 blank. I think it's very important that you need to sit with the users, understanding how they are transacting, understand the business. Suppose if I'm ordering for liquid or a chemical, granular raw material, it is possible that while in transit, there could be some evaporation, and that's why I should allow limit for either over receipt or under receipt. Or there could be moisture which could catch in transit on the material, and then it could be absorbed by the material, leading to increase in weight. That is also possible. So when I do a ERP control review, I would look at what rights, what transactions, what fields the users are actually incorporating or using, and what is the impact on the transaction. Is there any revenue impact? So let's look at this. Supplier name is XYZ, purchase order name is, a number is there, the purchase order date is there, the item code is there, the item description is there, PO quantity is mentioned, quantity which is received as per GRN is mentioned, quantity which is billed or accounted or liability is created is mentioned. That is what is meant by quantity billed. And there is over receipt tolerance column in ERP which has not been set, which allows that against a PO quantity of 700, I have been allowed, the company has received 800 and paid for 800. That means whether 100 was required or not required is something that we need to ask. Similarly, in the cases where it has not been set, if you see all the 4 cases, it has not been set, and there is over receipt. Now suppose if I set, then, and depending on the nature of the product, if I set the limit, I will not be allowed, the system will not allow me to take more than 735. So even if the client supplies 750, I will only be able to receive 735. So I have to tell the client that this kind of controls have to be put in the system. So unless you sit with your auditees, process owners, and yourself, see how the transaction moves, this kind of value adds will not be possible. Let me share another example. As I mentioned in the beginning, you should always look at areas which are never seen: canteen, leave policy, leaves availed by employees, or it could be even some random administration contractor or maintenance contractor. It could be something which is never seen, which is very marginal in nature. But believe me, something or the other always crops up, because people have a propensity that, yes, I'm not being watched and I may get away with it. Let me try. So that's how, these things build up. So company X is providing canteen facilities to its employees. Canteen is managed by a contractor. Every employee is given a meal coupon booklet. Booklets are serially numbered. And if I'm an employee, I've been issued a booklet with a number 2000, and all 26 coupons will contain the number 2000. There is no expiry date, very important on the booklet. Employees can continue using the coupons till the booklet gets exhausted. Charges are anyway deducted from the employee's salary. Employee is submitting the meal coupons to canteen contractor. Contractor will collect the coupon and it will invoice it to the company based on the number of coupons collected and on the rate that is fixed for each meal coupon. And as far as the employees are concerned, employees which have received coupons, it will be deducted from their salary. So what happens is, contractor will raise the bill and the invoice on a monthly basis along with the coupons. The invoice mentions the number of coupons and the agreed rate per meal coupon. So there is no process to verify the bill and the corresponding coupons, and payment is made by accounts directly to the contractor based on the invoice. and fraud has happened. So what kind of fraud can happen? I have actually personally seen how a fraud can happen in this way. So what happens is, the contractor, being smart, he has actually printed coupons on his own. And since there was no process to reconcile the bill and the corresponding coupons, it was observed that he has over-invoiced the company. Because there is no time limit on the coupon. There is no period that is mentioned on the coupon. There is a validity of the coupon is infinite. And he has precisely used such advantage. So friends, if you're getting me, these are the areas or these are the red flags where you can actually provide value addition to your clients or to your company in reviewing such areas. I am now coming to the last part of the presentation, that is report writing. Friends, let me tell you from my past experience, connecting with people, report writing, one of the most important aspects of audit. And it has to be at all levels. As auditors, you have all the power to access the lowest cadre of employee to the highest level, that is the board, which very few people have access to. You are empowered with conduct of independence by law. You have the power to listen and also objectively assess. And you also have the power to convey the significance of adherence to process. So we need to network with auditees. After 6, how many of us actually go and have a cup of tea or coffee with auditees? That is very, very important, because unless he sits with you, unless he doesn't have confidence on you, you may not even be able to identify what kind of red flag is whistleblowing, what's happening across. And employees nowadays are very, very smart. Deepika mentioned that we do a digital forensic, but I've seen that employees do not now are aware that they could be subjected to digital forensic review, and that's why they don't keep something that is on the computer. The trail is getting difficult by the day, and as you mentioned, WhatsApp or other circumstantial evidence then comes into play and increases the level of our efforts. So report writing, let me tell you friends from my past experience. On an average, a CEO, CFO will not even give 5 minutes or more than 5 minutes to a report. And a report is the most crucial part of an audit review. If you strike it right first time, believe me, any and every stakeholder will be compelled to read your report by default. It will become a habit. But how am I reporting and how am I writing is very, very important. We are actually supposed to be objective. And in our just to show that we have done a lot of work, we become subjective and we start writing long stories. Nobody has the time or interest to read or such long stories on what you have done. You need to ensure that your audit report catches the reader's attention. And how do we do it? You have to ensure objectivity is there in your report. There is no subjectivity. Let's see an example. Your report should ideally contain general background of the area that is reviewed, the audit observation with a best practice, what is the impact and risk and recommendation, management response and agreed action plan, a covering letter with your audit report, and it should mention appreciation if some auditee has actually taken action immediately. It should mention appreciation also. Let me tell you, even if you disagree with your auditee, you can mention it in your report. You have all the power, and it should be reflected. And in fact, such thing actually encourages the right culture or atmosphere of corporate governance. Let's see an example. Couple of things we need to always adhere to is taking a sign off from the auditees before issuing a report. It should state the date of committed action plan and who is going to be responsible to ensure implementation of that action. It should also report link the risks associated with all those observations and the likely impact. It should quantify if there is any potential benefit, if there is any confirmed lost value, and what is the methodology of such valuation. Then does your report mention limitations? Do you issue a discussion draft report, a formal draft report, and final audit report? I think these are some stages which are crucial before you issue the audit report. Let's see an example. You're doing a review of sales function X. Sales for the period April 10 to March 11 are 500 lakhs. Breakup of sales is direct customers around 3 crores, dealers 2 crores, total number of dealers 20. Your interaction with process owners and business head confirms that the company is yet to ink agreements with dealers and distributors. So you have interacted, and based that interaction, you find that the agreement with dealers and distributors is pending to be inked. Now that is definitely a control lapse. So how do you actually write an audit observation that will compel your CEO, your client, your CFO to take action? It should be very objective. So you have the mainframe observation, you have the recommendation, you have the impact risks, management response, agreed action plan. Make it absolutely crisp. Make it absolutely crisp. How do we make it? So let's look at this. Audit observation is agreements not inked with dealers. Potential opportunity to improve working capital scenario by rupees X lakhs. If you recollect in my earlier slides, we mentioned about value add or cost savings. The moment somebody reads that there is an opportunity to improve working capital, he is going to be by default reading the next lines. So we say that SBU is selling products directly to customers. We are giving a brief description. Total sales is this much. For details, if you want to review, refer annexure. Absence of written contracts or agreements. Now this is the main body of what you want to convey. Where you are saying that absence of written contracts or agreement implies increased financial and operational risk for the business unit. An opportunity to improve working capital exists in lieu of security deposits, which can be obtained in case agreements are inked with existing dealers. For details, refer annexure B. So simple. And what is the recommendation? So coming back, I have to state the financial risk, operational risk, and what I have stated: non-obtainment of security deposit, increased credit control risks, no control over dealers in case they push sales of the competitor, increases risk of reduced bottom line since dealers are not communicated in writing the minimum sales price at which they can sell to customers. This all forms part of agreement. Territory and customer specific rights cannot be assigned. Absence of control over periodical budgeted or targeted sales of dealers, and increases legal risk in case of dispute. So as I mentioned that these are very important things. Sorry, apologies, I got disconnected again because of some network issues. So these are very important things that we need to factor when we write a report. So I'll be happy to, that takes us to the end of presentation. We are well within time, and I'll be again happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks again for a patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such an informative session. And all the, I think, speakers were very eloquent and did, very informative on their topics. So I think next we will move on to our question and answer session. And I will share my screen, sir, and then all the panelists can just, we can approach the questions one on one. These are some of the questions we have received. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir. So one of the first questions is, are there any tools available for internal audit and any training available to use these tools? It has been sent by Madhav Agarwal. Any of the panelists would like to take this question?
No, I can take it up. There are multiple tools available. I think I covered it in my presentation. So, like IDEA, KCL. In fact, Excel itself is a very good tool for internal audit. So, the training on Excel, I think Institute also takes a lot of training on Excel. They are all available. These are some of the tools which are very readily available. Small size organizations can also use those. Yeah, I think if anybody wants to add, a lot of training is available on this.
Yes, sir. So actually data visualization tools can also be used for internal audit, like when sir addressed about dashboards and how we can present our reports better. And mainly when we want to do GL scrutiny, let's say on Tally scenario, when we do GL scrutiny, it is like very simple. But on a SAP or a ERP scenario, when we do GL scrutiny, actually visualization also works as a audit procedure itself. So we can look at tools like Power BI, Tableau also for internal audits.
Thank you, Dipeksha and Prashant. So I think that answers the question that servant tools are available. I think next we'll move on to this question. It has been sent by Abhijit Ghosh, and it says it will be beneficial for small and medium practitioners if our institute provides a few tools and softwares to empower them. Any of the panelists? I agree totally with this.
I think Abhijit, a very pertinent question, and definitely. So tools that are available in the market, again, these may be designed for large corporates, but I think that answers, the question that you have raised is yes. But I think what is important is there are definitely options available in the market, and we will definitely get back to you. I have noted your email ID. But the audit approach is very important. Unless you know what is to be utilized and what is to be, how do I use that software and what data I have to extract and what are those deviations that need to be reviewed, that is something that you have to master your skill on.
Yes.
And that can happen only if you have a very strong understanding of the business.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely right. Abhijit, tools, Institute can work towards it, but as I said earlier, Excel itself is a very good tool. So if you know how to use Excel in a right manner for SMP practice, it is very useful. So pivot table or your functions on Excel, we look up functions, sum if functions, a lot of those functions are extremely useful. So that can also be as a complementary.
Right. Thank you, everyone. I think the next question is, are there any software platforms offering workflow-based tech enablement for internal audit? It has been offered by Subhash.
Subhash, there are software platforms. There are software platforms. If you go on Google, you will get software platforms. There are available. So I may not want to take the names of the companies who are doing that, but there is something because everybody has their own preferences, but they are available. If you do some Google search, you will get it.
Yeah. Maybe I can give two names of open source tool. So actually for internal audit practice, we can use any project management tool. So first time implementation and configuration we have to do. We can use project management tool by Odoo. Odoo is an open source platform which we can use. And there's one more open source tool called Process Maker. So there also we can define our workflow, which is like menu based only. We can define the workflow like pre-audit, discussion, audit program. In the audit program, what is the checklist? Like that we can define and we can implement. Yes.
Right. Thank you. Thank you all. I think that this next question has already been answered. It has been answered. I think the panelists have already answered this question that plenty of tools are available online, and I think we have had a discussion about it. So the next question is how far it has been asked by Suresh Rao. How far digital audit is reliable, since any evidence available during the course of online audit can be fabricated or manipulated? Any of the panelists would like to answer that?
Sure. So Suresh, let me give you an example. What we have done is we have leveraged technology. For my current organization, or we have got depots. We do audit. We do a surprise audit, stock take or physical verification of inventory. So we have been able to embrace CCTV. We have been able to embrace Teams, and that's how we do physical verification. Plus, we have been looking at barcoding software tools. So even if I need to have a report, a lot of organizations are also using drone technology. Again, these are all far-fetched and high-end tools that are available in the market. But yes, definitely digital audit is equally reliable, because the only thing that misses is physically when you go to a site, you can as an auditor you can always sniff what's happening. In digital, the sniffing part is missing. The rest all things I think we can cover up sufficient ground.
My experience has been it can be up to 75 to 80% of what you can do physically, at least you can achieve through digital audit. Around 75-80% you may be able to achieve. Last 20%, as Purav rightly mentioned, is the last mile. The feel and touch and the look that you get, the sixth sense that you get from the site is something that you may not be able to get.
Yes, and one more control which we need to have is the manner in which we have audited, because when we used to do physical visits, we had a lot of evidences that we had physically been there, we have seen some content, and we have updated that content and all that, or audited that content. But let's say when we are having a process walkthrough through a call, so that is very important. Let's say we are doing a verification of a client system in a remote desktop. So how we are documenting it and how we are ensuring the integrity of the data is like a risk factor which we need to understand and ensure that proper documentation is there. So instead of doubting every evidence, the documentation that we have seen evidence that was there in their computer only. That will be a safeguard for us or a control for us. Yes, sir.
Right. I think eloquently answered that digital audit can only be so far relied, and we have to consider other implications as well. So next question is, if any Excel or Word or other file has been modified, can we get all the updation or modifications?
Yes. We can get actually. So for that, in the particular system, they should have configured what is called as event logs. So you can just go for your system search and type event viewer. So in event viewer, we have security logs, application logs. In that application logs, if you see, actually, we will get all the application, what all changes have been done for what all files. So there, if we are configuring for all modifications, then we'll get all modifications log. By default, when we install Windows OS, it will have only open, close, and save cache. So only these 4 logs will be generally stored. If we want all modification, we can do that on log aspect. But otherwise, we have to use track changes mode or something, some other control you need to have from the front end for ensuring that we have trail of changes.
Right. Thank you, Dipeksha. So the next question is from CV Subbarav.
Yeah, CCRA is Certified Credit Risk Research Analyst. So it is given by one AIWMA, so in Association of International Wealth Management. That is relating to credit risk assessment. And the PGP is Postgraduate Diploma in Business Analytics and Business Intelligence, that is offered by Great Lakes Institute of Management. So that is qualification on data analytics, and the first one is on credit risk.
Thank you, Dipeksha. So the next question is CA Purav sir. I think Santosh Kumar is asking for your.
I will.
All right, thank you. And I think this Vishwa Mohan Agarwal. I think the presentation was the question is regarding your presentation is as well, sir. Purav sir.
What is the question? You have very well explained, but the sample test may not give adequate results. Also, time factor is a constraint. Yes. Also. So let me answer that, Vishwa. I have mentioned that we are in the business of reasonable assurance. We can't provide 100% assurance unless we deploy technology and we change the way we work, as Prashant has mentioned. So that is going to happen. But yes, having said that, what we can definitely do is we can do an additional. If you feel that something is still not right, you can always do an extended procedure. You can increase your sample size. You may do a different procedural walkthrough as well. You may do a surprise check as well, and that's how you may comfort yourself. At the end of the day, the idea is that you need to be comfortable first. Then only you will be in a position to give comfort or assurance to your reporting stakeholders. I hope that answers your question.
Right. I think there's one more question from Kalapati Lakshmana and Gopal Krishna. That what will be a better tool for auditing data, using cloud platforms or storing data? If any of the panelists would like to answer that.
I think these are two separate questions. Better tool for auditing data is one, and using cloud platform for storing the data is a subset question, is what I can understand. Maybe Deepika, you would, or Prashant.
Yes, sir. So cloud platforms you can use, like for example, I think he's mentioning where we have data analytics tools which save data on cloud. So it is possible actually. We can use the tools like Power BI, which actually stores data in cloud. Actually, it stores the report on cloud. The data will be in our client system, but the reports are saved on cloud. You can use such tools. It is good. Actually, now I find that the previous question where we spoke about the audit trail and Word, how many times it was updated, all that. Actually, Google Sheets and Microsoft Office 365 gives you this interface to cloud data management, where we can actually use all the applications or all the pivot tables, visualization, whatever we do on a shared sheet, where we are saving and restoring the data, and like all the Excel, Word we are using from browser. So Office 365 is also a very good option. Then we can also go for Google Sheets and Google Docs. That is also a very good tool. And if we are talking about audit tool in specific, I don't know private tools like IDEA, ACL, whether they are providing cloud interface, but Tableau and Power BI are providing. Or any other Python-based tool is also having cloud interface. So that we can look at. Actually, this is more better, like cloud-based tool is more better because it gives us entire audit trail end-to-end, more than any other tool which we have on our desktop. So even Google Sheets, if you are using for audit, it has high security and it ensures audit trail. So Office 365 also does it. Actually, Microsoft has come up with cloud operating system. Instead of having our operating system in our local desktop, it is going for a cloud-based operating system. So now we have more requirement for adoption of shared technology and remote access, where using browser and cloud is becoming required. So yes, cloud-based platforms are much better actually.
A couple of examples where we have used Microsoft Azure, where it becomes like a virtual desktop, and the complete data security is maintained, so that the sharing of data, especially the confidential data, becomes much more secure with a proper firewall protection. And OneDrive is also quite useful.
Yes, Office 365. It comes with OneDrive, SharePoint, Cloud. Yes.
Yes. OneDrive, SharePoint is being very, very frequently utilized.
Yes.
If that helps
Right. I think that concludes the question and answer part of the session. I think there are no more questions left. Let me just check. Yeah. So with that, I think I would like to thank all the participants who have joined us today and all the panelists for being here and enlightening us on this very good topic. And I think all the panelists have been very eloquent and explained their topics really well. And I sure I have taken a lot of points with me and would like to implement them. And with that, thank you all. And I would also like to especially mention, Aarti and Arun for arranging the session very well. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanviji. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Prashant, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chalo, bye, Purav.
Bye, Prashant. Bye, Deepika. Let's take a
Bye, Deepika.
Yes,
Bye.
sure, sir. Take care. Bye.